who's ever saying yes to a dispensary is going to have more people coming to the dispensary. And so that has to be, and I don't think it's like alcohol. Is everybody just gonna go home with these sealed bags and either smoke or ingest? I don't think that always happens. I think people go other places. They find parking lots, they find all kinds of things, and I think we have to figure out that's gonna be more work. And then this problem I've mentioned, well, we all know it, there's no roadside test, there's no breathalyzer for cannabis. So this is another burden, I think, on the police, that they have to figure this out when they see impaired driving, they can't really take a blood test, you've gotta take someone somewhere, it's harder to take away a license, it's just more complicated, I think, and more work. The other thing is, well, I just kind of think we have our hands full enough with just legal cannabis without dealing with the extra burden, whatever it'll be. I don't know what it'll be. I mean, this is part of my issue, is I have a lot of I don't knows right now. And so it's hard for me to be positive about this without having the answers to a lot of things. The other thing that gets mentioned is the revenue. Warrenville is a different city than a lot. We all know that we don't have bonded debt. We have a robust budget. We have surplus. According to advice from accountants and other people, we are doing quite well. I don't think you always just lightly throw away an opportunity for revenue if it fits in with your city and what the goals of your city. The thing that occasionally keeps me up at night is in our budget, the only thing I think a lot of good people are working on it, staff, city council, consultants, is our water and sewer fund, for instance. That's where we're gonna struggle. And that's where we're trying not to have to raise rates, although we probably will. But the deal is, you can't use cannabis revenue. You can't use anything from the general fund or any other tax revenue for the water and sewer fund because it's called an enterprise fund and it has to support itself. So the one area that we could use help in, this won't do a darn thing for it. So I'm not really swayed by this revenue part of it. And lastly, it's sort of the idea of safety. A few of you mentioned that we have recently gotten an award for being the safest town. I thought it was Illinois, but maybe it was DuPage. We usually get the top 10. We were 11th once, but we scored quite high in safety. Now, the other I don't know is, I'm not quite sure what the criteria is. Is it statistics from the police? Is it unknown factors? I can't help but think that a dispensary is just going to, it's not going to be a positive on that score. I don't know if it's an issue for anybody who's making these decisions, but it can't really be a positive, I don't think. So as I look at the thing in total, the issue in total, it seems like it's going to be more work and the safety is going to be less. By how much? Again, I don't know. But as I logically look at this, I also remember our strategic and economic development plan that we use as a guideline for many decisions that we make. And one of the points in that, one of the big points is safety. And we heard this from the public. We heard it, staff weighed in, stakeholders weighed in, the council weighed in, and safety was a big, big thing. So I guess as I look at this, I don't see the benefit outweighing what it could cost us, not just money, but in all kinds of other ways. So my vote is to opt out.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Crucial?
Thank you. So I agree that initially we probably will see an increase in resource costs that are probably going to be associated with the legalization of cannabis across the state of Illinois. That's whether we have a dispensary or not. And that's that's gonna be any town in Illinois. So it makes sense to me to be proactive, in securing a way to help pay for those costs up front. It also makes sense to me to find some diversity in tax revenue, and promote a business-friendly community for any business that comes to town that wants to open a legal business in town. So there's other, I won't rehash what other pros there are, but so I'm in favor of opting in.
Alderman Ashower?
As I've said in the past, actually, first of all, I'd like to say something on behalf of Alderman Veer. He's out of town and couldn't make it to the meeting, and he wanted to make sure everybody knew that he was not in favor of opting in. He just can't vote on it because he's not here. But he was adamant about that, so I've taken care of that. I don't support it. For several different issues. The reason I don't think we need the money, I don't think that Warrenville will be a better community. We've gotten advice from our chief of police. I mean, when somebody says no good can come of this, you probably should pay a little bit of attention. The people that I've talked to in my ward, which has been a lot, have been a high percentage, 10 to 2, somewhere thereabout, against it. And it wasn't like I was twisting their arms or coercing them or trying to get something out of them that wasn't there. It was volunteer information. I asked them with a smile on my face, didn't have anything to abuse them with. I don't think the revenue is worth the cost that we might have. I personally know of a lot of young people that have done a lot of damage to their lives with marijuana. And obviously this legalization is not going to make that better. To think that, in the words of some of the people that spoke, comparing it with alcohol, to think that having legal sales of alcohol, that minors aren't going to drink it, that's kind of naive. Well, if we have legal sales of recreational cannabis, minors are going to get their hands on it at a point in their life when it has a big effect on how their future is going to be formed, how they look at life in general. I had a young man work for me that quit high school, said all I wanted to do was smoke weed. He said I didn't care about another thing, and he fortunately had a life-changing event and was able to get past it and move on. But that's not a singular story. I have relatives with addiction problems, and I don't see any benefit to making it any easier for anybody to source those issues. I don't think it'll help property values. I don't think it will encourage other businesses to move here. I just, in a few words, don't see the value in it. I will be voting against it.
Alderman Goodman?
I'd just like to make 2 points. First, in 2013, before we had an ordinance in place authorizing medical sales of cannabis, we had a dispensary interested in coming here. They attended and they have participated in several hearings, public meetings at the Plan Commission level, the City Council level, and public support was pretty strong at that point. They had a contract to buy or lease, I'm not sure, property here in town, and they went through a lot of steps to get their plans approved. They went through the staff, the Plan Commission. They had open meetings to try and let people know about their floor plan, their design, their security, and those approvals were granted. Then they applied for a state license with many other competing dispensaries before the state law legalizing medical marijuana went into effect. And they didn't get a license, so they never came here. It was months, probably years of process, effort, steps, leading up to and before the legalization of that program went into effect statewide. But in the 6 years since, no other dispensary has come here. It's been legal in Warrenville since 2013. And no dispensary has expressed interest in opening here, has, to my knowledge, begun any of those steps to open in Warrenville, and that tells me a lot. As far as we know, no business is seriously interested in coming here. No one has approached us in a way that that business did, has started the process, has gone through the steps, has had hearings, has had public meetings, has presented plans. So if people were seriously interested in coming here in the foreseeable future, a business such as this, we would know it. Now, down the road, who knows? As Alderman Davalos has said, some communities nearby have opted in, others have opted out. When more communities opt out, it makes it somewhat more probable that a business would come here if we opt in. That's certainly true. But what does this mean? This tells me that this is not such a dramatic, life-altering decision as some people keep saying. It tells me that whatever we decide, even if we approve this proposal as recommended by the Plan Commission, we're still not going to get a business like this in the foreseeable future, and maybe not for many years. I try not to make decisions on behalf of the city for personal reasons. This is the second thing I want to say, because when I distance my personal preferences from the issues that on neutral grounds I feel are in the best interest of this community. I'm a public official. I'm not a dictator or an aristocrat who gets to have everything go just the way that I like or think that I can. I don't especially like this product. I also don't like tobacco, smoked or vaped. I am not a drinker, and I think that alcohol is pretty dangerous, though I know that that is a minority view in society. Likewise, many people in this country, some in this room, have in many cases illegally used cannabis. I have not. I don't plan to, but the city council can't ban illegal sales of this product. They are already banned. The one thing that the people who want to opt out are asking us to do is ban legal sales to adults with regulation, limits, traceable products that won't bring profits to cartels, and taxes, accountability by the business owners. It seems to me that those legal sales will be better than what we have now. So it's on that basis that I think we should opt in.
Alderman Gary.
What I've listened to the last few weeks here and what I've heard from people that I have spoken to outside of this location, whether it be at the community I live in, which is Emerald Green, when I walk my dog, I see a lot of people out. At the grocery store, at the Family Foods, at the restaurant, at the Target. I've been approached, is this on now? I've been approached numerous times. I've probably heard more opt-ins than I've heard opt-outs. I was pretty amazed because of the comments I've heard here are more opt-out. I think the people who want to opt in, as someone said before, are unwilling to come most of the time because maybe they don't want their neighbors to know. I don't know. But the comments that I've had have been personal conversations. It hasn't been group conversations. It's been a personal one-on-one, face-to-face with someone, and those people are willing to talk to me. I mean, I actually had someone come up to me at church on Sunday and told me they were very much interested in opting in. So to me, it's a choice, as again, someone else said earlier. God gave me a free will. He gave me the will to choose. And just like anything else, alcohol, gambling, people don't like gambling, but we have gambling right here in town. You can go to Family Foods and you can buy lottery tickets. It's a form of gambling. Tobacco, for me, addiction is probably part of my life. I was a smoker, I've been a drinker, I've, gambled, and I don't do much of those things anymore, it's very limited, but, I have a food addiction. So, what should I do? Should I close every McDonald's? Should I close the Burger King? Should I not let the Culvers who wants to move in town, not come in town, because I don't, no one else should do it because I can't. It's my choice as to what I guess I abuse, and that's what I choose food. So, I think the problem is that, I'm not sure if someone will come to Warrenville or not, mostly because the Plan Commission has done a good job in restricting, the different things that this company that wants to get a license, they have to get a special use permit, and there's so many restrictions on the special use permit, I don't know if anybody even wants to go through that. It's not just getting the license from the state of Illinois, they have to get through the Plan Commission here with that special use permit, and it's not gonna be easy. So, I don't know about the driving, I think, I know a lot of people in town that smoke. They drive through town now. I don't know what the statistics are from the police department as to, and I probably should have asked, as to how many people get stopped that, are not under the influence of alcohol. I don't know what that number is. But, there are people that drive through town already, and they have for years. I've lived here 40 years. And I know they do. And they're young people, and, if people are so worried about their children too, then don't have opioids in your house. Make sure that they're locked up and put away, because kids go through medicine cabinets and they take all kinds of drugs from their parents. So, that's something that somebody else talked about too, education. We have to educate your children and let them know that it's a medicine bottle, it's not for everybody. Just because I take it doesn't mean that you can take it also. Just because I have alcohol doesn't mean you can have alcohol. Just because I smoke doesn't mean you can smoke, because you're not 21. And at 21, you get to make those choices. Thank you.
Alderman Wilson.
Well, I made myself pretty clear the last meeting that we had that I'm totally against it. But I'm also not going to spend much more time here. If I thought for a moment that I could change the mind of those that are going to vote for it, I would filibuster until they did. But chances of that ever happening are slim to none. So rather than putting everybody else through the turmoil that we're going to go through, and I know that the one person that was here wasn't able to be here tonight. I'm not sure how he would have voted, but I understand he would have voted no. But that doesn't count because he's not here and he can't vote. We don't do absentee ballots. So I'm not going to say much more other than the fact that I hope and wish that we had voted to opt out. I don't think it's going to be that way. So I think the only thing we can hope and pray that maybe nobody will come by wanting to build here in Warrenville. So thank you all who came, the 7 people who voted against it versus the 3 people who voted for it. Not that that represents the population of Warrenville, but it's been pretty much the same way. Every meeting that we've had, the cons are more against it than the pros to speaking out. Now I know there are a lot of people mention that, well, if you're really for it, you don't want to have people know you're for it. Well, I don't think that holds water. So the vote is going to come up, but I just want to thank everybody who came to express their opinions on this, who spoke to me in person, telephoned me, cabled me, or everything. So the vote is here. Thank you, and I vote no.
Thank you. Alderman Widener.
Yes, I'd just like to express my appreciation for the community's voices that I've heard. I think everyone has made very valid points and conducted themselves in a very professional manner and done a lot of research on this topic. And we hear a lot about surveys, and you can find a survey that'll back up your opinion one way or another. And I guess my challenge as an alderman was to grow a good community. And one of the first things we did was establish a strategic plan within the city, and we conducted a citizen survey for that. And among the aldermen and the citizens, the number one issue was economic development. And so we all said to ourselves we would embrace new businesses, new industries. We would look for good paying jobs for people and grow the local economy with new opportunities. With any kind of development, I think there's going to be a certain number of safety issues. We add apartments, there's going to be safety issues with adding apartments. You add a liquor serving establishment, there's going to be safety issues with that. We are divided by State Route 59 and Route 56. Certainly there's going to be a lot of issues with people who are driving impaired, whether we have a recreational cannabis sales point building or not, that will impact us. And I just think with the local regulations, the strict special use permits that we can apply, the good work that the Plan Commission and Zoning Commission has done regarding outlining tight zoning regulations, strict signage, hours of operation, the restriction of use on the premises, the reasonable distance requirements, and the security provisions that we can enact, the revenues that can be targeted for specific issues in Warrenville will be beneficial, and the good will outweigh the bad in the long run. So I will be voting for this. Thank you.
Okay, guess that's everyone? Okay, roll call please.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Widener.
Aye.
Alderman Kreschel.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Nay.
Alderman Ashour.
Nay.
Alderman Wilson.
No.
Okay, in this situation, I am required to vote. A couple of comments before I give you my decision. This cannabis issue is kind of divided into two parts. One was the general legalization by the state. That's been decided. So whatever issues are attendant to that decision, we're gonna have to deal with those one way or another. The state has determined that cannabis will be, if you're 21 after the first of the year, you will be able to legally imbibe, okay? The second issue is whether to opt in or opt out, and that I think needs to be defined a little more carefully. If you think in terms of opting in, saying, well, any business that wants to open in town is welcome to come and we'll let you do whatever you want, I would certainly be opposed to that because that wouldn't be prudent. But the Plan Commission has given us a very, very strict recommendation for the zoning ordinance, which, first of all, if we do get an offer of a dispensary in town, their recommendation is that we only accept one. We have one, we don't have multiple. Okay, so that's a pretty strict limitation. Other limitations have been mentioned. It's a very small box. It's going to be very difficult for that business to open to start with because of the restrictions. The second thing that's going to be difficult for these places to open is the expense involved with opening it. It's not going to be a mom and pop operation. There's a lot of money involved in buying a license initially. There's a lot of money in setting up an operation. It's been estimated somewhere between $2 and $4 million to open one of these shops. Now, it's hard for me to envision someone making that kind of investment with very strict controls, who isn't gonna follow those controls because they're gonna protect their investment. So it's gonna be a clean operation. I think the Plan Commission did a superb job of putting limits on the potential business so that we do get, if we get one of those operations, it's a clean operation. The thing I think that bothers me most about the current situation is the black market is 100% in control of the supply of all the drugs. So we have ceded them control over what they give us and what they give our kids. To me, that's not a very good situation. If your children is buying in the black market, maybe they're getting what they think they're getting, maybe they're not. Maybe it's laced with something else. Maybe it's something very, very dangerous. One of the positives about legalization is that when you go to a dispensary, you know that the product was grown in Illinois, you know exactly what the product is, and you know its potency, and you know that it's not mixed with something that's far more dangerous. To me, it makes a lot of sense to try to take control from the black market. This is a step in taking that control. There's a lot of talk about the safety for our children. They're certainly not in good hands when they're buying drugs from the black market. That's not a safe situation. If we can turn that around somehow and get them to wait till they're 21, hopefully, but then be able to buy a safe product, that makes sense to me. So for those reasons and many others, I would support this motion for opting in. Well, so the motion carries. We'll move on then to item 6D. Would someone like to make that motion? Alderman Berry?
I'd like to make a motion to accept Public Safety and Finance Committee recommendation, waive second reading, and pass ordinance 02019-63, amending Title 3 of the City of Warrenville City Code to adopt the municipal cannabis retailer's occupational tax.
Second.
Motion second by Alderman Chrisell. Discussion? Alderman Goodman.
So one thing that's been discussed in many places has to do with whether having such high government taxes increases illegal sales. So I'm interested, staff has made the recommendation that if we did opt in, that we do impose the 3% tax. And I know that plenty of people who've discussed this have said we're only interested in the revenue. With no business coming, there won't be any revenue, but if a business did come and we had this tax on the books, it would be imposed. So I guess my question is, with an overall total tax base from the county, the state, the county opted out but decided to impose the tax. With an overall tax of 45%, would removing our 3% make it any less likely that the price difference would encourage a black market? I just wondered if staff that had recommended imposing this had any thoughts on that. Whether that incremental difference would be of any use.
Not all at once. Ms. Smith and Mr. Copeland.
Thank you. The only comment I could give back on it, years after something might open, then we could give you actual answers, as Captain Obvious might say, but all I can tell you right now is that with the compiling, if it's sold in our town, our local taxes would apply. So there'd be the, Kevin, 1.25% sales tax, home roll, plus a 3% tax. You're talking about 4.25% tax if something's sold in town. That home roll sales tax will apply regardless. If it's spent, hypothetically, a dispensary opens a year from now, the 1.25% tax, the county tax, all the state taxes would all apply to it. So I think, I'm thinking some of this out as I'm speaking here. The variable that you're referring to is the 3%. So the difference is going to be 3% on whatever somebody purchases. The limited amount I know about purchasing, I don't purchase it, but if you're buying marijuana, a 3% increase is probably not going to make or break that difference. I think that if you took all 40% of the 40+% of those taxes and took them off of it, it makes a big difference on price. It's nearly half the cost, 40% of the cost, 45, whatever. I don't think that a 3% increase from the local level, speculating, would really make that much difference. I don't think that he has any thoughts.
Anyone else want to augment that? Is that helpful?
I think so, because when, the city attorney Weissman, Stuart Weiss, had spoken to the council about it, he said that one thing that, legalizing adult sale of marijuana would not do was decrease the medical, licenses use of it, because medical patients can still get, cannabis without those additional taxes, or maybe he said something about a 1% tax total, or as medicine, or something like that. And that, as a result, there would still be medical dispensaries and maybe even some separate medical dispensaries that didn't have recreational sales licenses as well, because those people would still be dramatically incentivized to buy it in a much cheaper form. So obviously the difference in price, 45%, 1%, that's huge, but 45%, 42%, I'm not sure that our deciding to forego that would make enough of a difference to make that decision worthwhile. But if anybody would like to convince me otherwise, then I'm open to that argument. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Davalos?
Right, I'm not gonna convince you, either way, but I know there are communities that have opted out of the 3%, just to be more attractive to a dispensary, so that is happening. The other thing is in the packet, maybe it's the minutes from the last meeting. I think said that it would not only be the 1.25%, it would also be 1% share of the shared sales tax from the state, and the 3% would all come ultimately to us. Is that right? Okay, thanks.
Alderman Kershaw?
Yeah, I think that, it's my opinion that the majority of customers aren't concerned with costs as far as the 1%, 2%, 3%. If they were, they wouldn't be going to the dispensary. So I think that 3% makes sense to me.
Okay. Anyone else? Alderman Ashar?
I support the 3%. I don't think we should be in a position to try and make our town more competitive for a dispensary. I think if we could be 6%, I'd support it.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, may I have a roll call, please, then?
Alderman Ashour.
Aye.
Alderman Kreschel.
Aye.
Alderman Weidner.
Aye.
Alderman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Berry.
Aye.
Alderman Goodman.
Aye.
Alderman Davalos.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. That is basically the end of our agenda for this evening. There's nothing under the regular agenda. We have no unfinished business that's listed, no new business that's listed, and no need for closed session. We do need, however, a motion to adjourn. Alderman Weidner,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
second by Alderman Davalos, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you for your attention.
Okay.